The snow whipped through the air like shards of glass that December night in 1892, each flake a reminder of how unforgiving a Texas winter could be. Out in the remote hills of Willow Bend, a man named John Whitaker stood in the doorway of his modest cabin, his oil lamp flickering against the gale. At 35, John was a sturdy rancher, built like the oaks that dotted his 800-acre spread tall, unyielding and alone. He'd sworn on his dying mother's grave to stay pure until he found a woman worth his heart, a promise that had turned him into the town's quiet legend, the bachelor farmer who turned down every advance. But tonight, as the blizzard howled like a beast from hell, a figure collapsed on his snow-covered porch. It was Rebecca Ellis, the widowed librarian from town, her soaked coat hugging a figure that could make even the coldest man question his vows. Behind him, his empty home loomed, and ahead, 3 days of isolation that could shatter reputations or ignite forbidden fires. As her green eyes opened, pleading through the storm, John felt his ironclad promise start to crack. Would he hold fast to honor, or let desire rewrite his fate? John's story started back in his youth, in a dusty shack outside Austin, where his mother, Martha Whitaker, had raised him single-handed after his pa drank himself into an early grave chasing saloon girls and easy thrills. At 18, as Martha lay wasting from fever, she'd clutch his hand and made him swear, "John, promise me you'll wait for a real love, not the cheap kind that ruined your father. Save yourself for someone who sees your soul." He promised without hesitation, a young man's oath to the woman who'd been his everything. But oaths like that could become cages. By 35, John was 6'3" of solid muscle, honed from wrangling cattle and fixing fences under the relentless Texas sun. His hands were rough from rope burns, but precise enough to mend a watch or drop a coyote at 100 yards with his old Winchester. The folks in Willow Bend whispered about him the bachelor farmer, watching how he'd nod politely to the barmaids, avert his eyes when the young widows flirted at the general store, and bolt from any talk that veered toward romance. What they didn't see were the sleepless nights, staring at the rafters, wondering if his mother's words were a shield or a sentence to solitude. Rebecca Ellis knew solitude all too well. At 48, she'd buried her husband 5 years back to tuberculosis, leaving her childless and adrift in a town that prized youth and fertility. She ran the small library in Willow Bend, surrounded by books that fueled her quiet dreams, her chestnut hair streaked with gray that shimmered like moonlight on the Rio Grande. Her hazel eyes held the wisdom of late-night readings and unspoken longings, her beauty the kind that unfolded slowly, drawing men in despite the gossip that painted her as too refined or too independent to remarry. She lived in a tiny apartment above the library, scraping by on her salary and steering clear of the town's prying eyes. But blizzards don't care about reputations. On December 22nd, little Tommy Jenkins fell ill with a raging fever on his family's farm 10 miles out, and the doctor was snowed in at Fort Worth. Rebecca saddled her horse, Daisy, with remedies and hot soup, braving the early flurries to reach the boy. The fever broke by afternoon, but the ride back turned deadly winds screaming, visibility gone, drifts piling like walls. Daisy slipped on hidden ice, her legs snapping with a crack that echoed Rebecca's despair. On foot now, with miles to go and darkness closing in, she fought the cold that numbed her limbs and clawed at her will. When John's cabin emerged from the whiteout, its lantern glow a beacon of hope, she staggered the final steps and pounded weakly on the door before collapsing. The door swung open, and John gazed down at the woman who'd fueled more than a few idle thoughts in town. Rebecca Ellis, elegant even in distress, her lips tinged blue, snow frosting her lashes like jewels. Her wool dress clung mercilessly, outlining a body that stirred something primal in him. "Help!" she whispered through chattering teeth. Without a word, John lifted her effortlessly. She felt light as a fawn and carried her inside, kicking the door shut against the storm. The cabin was simple, one room with a potbelly stove, a single bed, and a scarred table. He hung her dripping coat by the fire and fetched dry clothes, his flannel shirt, and thick socks. "Turn around," she said, her voice gaining strength in the warmth. He faced the wall, but his mind raced, imagining the rustle of fabric, the reveal of pale skin. When he turned back, she stood transformed, his shirt draping her like a temptation, her hair tumoring loose in waves that begged to be touched. They ate in tense, silent stew and bred the fire crackling as their eyes met too often, too long. Silence bred danger, awareness simmering like heat under coals. Finally, Rebecca broke it. "The town talks about you, you know. The bachelor farmer." John's cheeks burned. Folks got too much time on their hands. She leaned in, her gaze steady. "Is it true that you've never—" He could have dodged, but the storm's isolation stripped away pretense. "Promised my ma on her deathbed. Wait for the right one. Seemed right at the time." She touched his hand, a spark jumping between them. 35 years, and you've honored it. That's either noble or tragic." His heart pounded as her words hung, the wind outside mirroring the turmoil within. What if nobility were just another word for fear? Day 2 brought no break in the weather, but it delivered trouble on horseback. John was chopping wood out back when 3 riders appeared through the haze. Leading them was Harlan Buck, the sleazy owner of the Silver Spur Saloon, a man in his 50s gone soft from whiskey and schemes. For months, Harlan had pursued Rebecca with unwanted gifts and leers that made her stomach turn. "Whitaker," Harlan bellowed. "You got my woman in there?" John gripped his axe, stepping forward. "She's no one's but her own." Took shelter from the storm. Harlan's eyes narrowed, spotting Rebecca through the window in John's shirt, hair unbound in intimate sight that fueled his rage. "Shelter? You finally broke your streak with a leftover widow? Town's buzzing's been missing." The insult boiled John's blood, a possessive fury rising unbidden. "Apologize, Buck, or leave." Harlan laughed cruelly. "Or what? Virgin farmer gonna fight? I'm doing you a service teaching you with someone experienced." John's temper snapped. He dropped the axe, grabbed his rifle from the porch. Last chance. Harlan reached for his pistol, and chaos erupted. John's shot grazed the first hired gun's arm, spinning him off his horse. The second bullet shattered the other's holster before he could draw. Harlan's gun cleared leather, but John's third whistled past his ear, close enough to singe. "Next one's through your skull," John growled. Pale and defeated, Harlan wheeled his horse. "This ain't done." But as they vanished into the snow, John knew he'd crossed a line from dutiful son to fierce guardian. Inside, Rebecca waited, her face a mix of awe and heat. "You risked everything for me. Some risks are worth it." Her eyes darkened with want. "What am I to you, John?" "Everything." She closed the distance, still in his shirt, the fire silhouetting her form. "Your promise." He traced her cheek. "Maybe the right woman's been here all along. I'm no innocent girl, 48, widowed. I've known love's touch. And I've known nothing but empty nights." "We fit." Tears glistened as she confessed. "I haven't felt wanted in years, like I'm just a relic." He wiped them away. "You're stunning, Rebecca Deep. Real beauty." Their kiss started gently, exploratory, then ignited like prairie fire. She pulled him close, her moan unraveling his control. What followed was patient, profound Rebecca guiding with whispers and caresses, showing him that intimacy could be holy, fierce, and freeing. In the fire's glow, as the blizzard raged, John shattered his vow, finding in her a love that redeemed every lonely year. Rebecca rediscovered passion, feeling cherished, not pitted. They slept entwined, dreams of isolation banished. Dawn broke clear, the storm spent. John woke to Rebecca's head on his chest, her hair soft against him. "Regrets?" she asked softly. "Only that it took this long." As they dressed, Reality loomed. "I won't hide us," she said. "No shadows." He knelt. "Then marry me, Rebecca, proper, in front of everyone." Her yes sealed it through joyful tears. 7 months later, in Willow Bend's clapboard chapel, John wed Rebecca amid the town's mix of cheers and stares. Harlan had fled to Oklahoma, his threats empty. John finally understood his mother's promise wasn't about denial, but deserving love. That night, in their cabin, Rebecca murmured, "No more tempests. Life brings," he replied, holding her. "But we'll face them side by side." Under the vast Texas sky, thunder rolled, distant not a warning, but a promise of strength forged in storm. What do you think? Should John have kept his promise forever, or was breaking it for love the right call? Share your take in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stance on vows, age gaps, and defending what's yours. Let's debate.